Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. The winter session of Parliament begins. Prime Minister Modi calls for constructive debate. Opposition disrupts proceedings in both houses over voter roll revision. Prime Minister Modi speaks to Sri Lankan President Dissanayake. Pledges continued support after Cyclone Ditwa under Operation Sagar Bandhu. India rushes to Sri Lanka's aid. Hundreds rescued, relief delivered under Operation Sagar Bandhu in keeping with Neighbourhood First. More than 600 people feared dead in floods and landslides in Indonesia's Sumatra island. Over 400 people missing. Ukraine's defense minister joins talks in Brussels as EU's foreign policy chief Kallas calls the coming week pivotal for diplomacy. Our top story, Southeast Asia is reeling from relentless rains, floods and landslides, with Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia and Vietnam facing their worst disasters in years. The death toll has crossed 1,100, prompting massive military deployments and urgent appeals for aid as communities struggle to cope with the devastation.
Relentless rain, flooding and landslides have left Southeast Asia grappling with one of the deadliest natural disasters in recent years, with Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia and Vietnam facing their worst disasters in years as the death toll crossed 1,100 mark on Monday. The hardest hit Sri Lanka and Indonesia deployed military personnel to help survivors. In Indonesia, the death toll from devastating floods and landslides triggered by cyclonic rains has reached 600, with over 500 still missing on Monday. Rescue teams and residents in Indonesia's West Sumatra battled to clear roads blocked by mud and debris, while improving weather revealed the scale of disaster, with some residents trying to salvage valuable items like documents and motorcycles from their damaged homes. The country's disaster management agency said more than 28,000 homes have been damaged in Indonesia and 1.4 million people affected. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto visited the three affected provinces on Monday and praised residents for their spirit in the face of what he called a catastrophe. The government has sent 3 warships carrying aid and 2 hospital ships to some of the worst hit areas, where many roads remain impassable. In Sri Lanka, the government called for international aid and used military helicopters to reach people stranded by flooding and landslides triggered by Cyclone Ditwa, as the death toll passed 355, with another 370 still missing. In Thailand, the death toll slightly rose to 176 on Monday from flooding in 8 southern provinces that affected about 3 million people and led to a major mobilization of its military to evacuate critical patients from hospitals and reach people marooned for days by floodwaters. In the hardest hit province of Songkhla, where 138 people were killed, the government said 85% of water services had been restored and would be fully operational by Wednesday. Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has set a timeline of 7 days for residents to return to their homes. In neighboring Malaysia, 11,600 people were still in evacuation centers, according to the country's disaster agency, which said it was still on alert for a second and third wave of flooding. The devastation in these Southeast Asia countries follows months of adverse and deadly weather, including typhoons that have lashed the Philippines and Vietnam and caused frequent and prolonged flooding elsewhere. Scientists have warned that extreme weather events will become more frequent as a result of global warming. Dheeraj Das's report for DD India.
And India consistently provides swift and substantial humanitarian assistance and disaster relief to its neighbors, guided by the Neighbourhood First policy and also the emerging role as a first responder in the region. Now, this support, often delivered through specific operations, helps affected countries cope with natural disasters and economic crises. Raghav Kumar Jha explores India's role as a friend in need and a dependable neighbor in times of crisis. As Sri Lanka continues to grapple with one of its deadliest natural disasters in recent years, India has intensified rescue efforts under Operation Sagar Bandhu, deploying helicopters and NDRF teams across the hardest hit regions. Indian Air Force helicopters evacuated 400 stranded passengers from the different regions, which include more than 30 foreign nationals. Indian Naval and Indian Air Force's transport aircraft are carrying out rescue missions and delivering relief supplies, earning gratitude from Sri Lankan leaders.
We are grateful to the Indian government and NDRF's rescue missions. I think there is much more needed assistance, particularly in rescuing the affected areas.
Operation Sagar Bandhu is yet another instance when India has come forward to extend a helping hand to its neighbors facing a disaster, natural or man-made. Back in the year 2014, the Maldives faced a severe water crisis. Operation Neer supplied 20,000 litres of fresh drinking water and desalination units to the Maldives. In 2015, India responded to Nepal's devastating Gorkha earthquake by launching Operation Maitri and deploying aircraft, helicopters, medical teams and 43 tons of relief materials. Myanmar received relief shipments in 2015 floods, followed by Operation Karuna in 2023 for Cyclone Mocha, where Indian naval ships delivered 40 tons of food, medicines and shelter. Bangladesh witnessed Operation Insaniyat in 2017 for the Rohingya refugee crisis, providing 53 tons of rice, medicines and blankets. During COVID-19 pandemic, India supplied vaccines and medical supplies to over 100 nations under Vaccine Maitri. Now let's take a look at the details of humanitarian assistance provided by India to its neighbors over the last 5 years. In 2021, Afghanistan received humanitarian aid worth INR 16 crore. In 2022, 28 tons of disaster relief material supplied during the earthquake. In 2023, 40,000 litres of malathion pesticide, 32 tons of relief items and food grain assistance of 50,000 metric tons was sent to Afghanistan. In 2020, Bangladesh received 30,000 surgical masks, 15,000 head covers, 50,000 sterile surgical gloves, 1 lakh HCQ tablets, RT-PCR test kits, oxygen plants and concentrators from India. In 2021, Bhutan received 12 consignments of medical aid worth INR 6.47 crores. 501 crores of development assistance to help mitigate COVID pandemic. In 2022, medical aid worth INR 2.40 crore were given to Bhutan. In 2020, Myanmar received 20,000 kits for displaced persons in Rakhine State. In 2022, India sent 10,000 metric tons of rice and 200 metric tons of wheat to Myanmar. In 2023, Nepal received HADR assistance of 4.14 tons of medicines and 41 tons of relief materials. In 2024, the Himalayan country received 36 tons of relief material in the aftermath of heavy rainfall, floods and landslide. In 2022, India gave Sri Lanka 1 lakh rapid antigen test kits, 26 tons of medical aid, a new line of credit LOC of 500 million US dollars for purchase of petroleum products from India, and a US dollars 1 billion credit facility for supply of essential items till March 2024. Raghav Kumar Jha's report for DD India. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with the Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, and the Prime Minister expressed his heartfelt condolences on the loss of lives and widespread devastation in Sri Lanka in the wake of Cyclone Ditwa. Prime Minister conveyed that the people of India stand in firm solidarity and support with the people of Sri Lanka in this hour of need. President Dissanayake conveyed his deep gratitude for India's assistance in the wake of the disaster and appreciated the swift deployment of rescue teams and relief material. He also conveyed the appreciation of the people of Sri Lanka for India's timely and effective response efforts. Prime Minister assured President Dissanayake of India's continued support to Sri Lanka under the ongoing Operation Sagar Bandhu, providing rescue and relief to distressed persons. The two leaders agreed to remain in close touch. And Arun Sharma, who covers the Prime Minister's office, is with us right now on the phone line. Arun, put this into context for us. Give us the greater detail of the conversation that the Prime Minister had with the President of Sri Lanka, Mr. Dissanayake.
Well, Mark, first of all, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed his heartfelt condolences on the loss of lives and the devastation that we are witnessing in Sri Lanka. And of course, the Sri Lankan President also conveyed his deep gratitude for India's assistance. Now, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that in line with India's vision Mahasagar, India remains the first responder, and India is the first responder, and it will continue to extend all the necessary assistance in the coming days for Sri Lanka as well, because now the greater challenge for Sri Lanka will be, of course, about the rehabilitation efforts that it will go forward with, because the cyclone has caused massive devastation, but now the rehabilitation efforts will also India will be playing a significant role as far as rehabilitation efforts are concerned. Now, resuming the public services, restoring livelihoods, of course, remains a greater challenge. So, in that context, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has assured the Sri Lankan President that yes, India will be at the forefront when it comes to rehabilitation efforts are concerned. Second important aspect is that we know this fact that so far a total 53 tons of relief material has already been handed over to Sri Lanka, and importantly, as far as the the evacuation is concerned, we know this fact that NDRF teams as of now are also have been carrying out various search and rescue operations in various severely affected and isolated regions, and total of more than 120 persons have already been rescued. And as far as Indians are concerned, we know this fact that more than basically 1,500 stranded Indians have already been brought back to Sri Lanka via 3 commercial flights. So yes, as far as India's Neighbourhood First policy is concerned, India's vision Mahasagar is concerned, India continues to be the first responder, and it stands firmly in solidarity with Sri Lanka. And of course, it remains committed as well as far as supporting the rescue relief operations are concerned.
So, in that context, Arun, Prime Minister must have asked about, the extent of damage and, the manner in which, what kind of targeted support India might be willing to give at this point in time. Because we have seen that India has always been the first responder, as you are saying. But, just sending relief materials without those people asking for it or putting it into context, I'm sure Prime Minister might have, looked for the requirements in greater detail.
Well, as of now, Mark, the bigger challenge for Sri Lanka is to come back on track again, because Sri Lanka was already reeling under pressure as far as the economic crisis is concerned. That was, very much deep in Sri Lanka. And when the cyclone hits the country like Sri Lanka, the trouble mounts for Sri Lanka as well. Now, we know this fact that India has already extended various line of credits to Sri Lanka for infrastructure development in part, and of course, in boosting economic activities in Sri Lanka as well. But apart from that, as far as cyclone is concerned, it is too early to assess the situation. But yes, the first, the response as of now from India is that how can rescue and relief operation can be conducted? How can loss of lives be minimized? How can livelihoods be restored once again? And of course, as far as the rehabilitation process is concerned, because that is of significance. How can India be of great contributor as far as resuming public services are concerned and as far as rehabilitation efforts are concerned? So talks were primarily in that aspect. It was a phone call that assured Sri Lanka that India is standing just beside you as far as a friend is concerned, and it is a friend in need, a friend indeed. And of course, India's neighbourhood policy or Neighbourhood First policy, and of course, Vision Mahasagar reassures that aspect as well.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Arun Sharma, for joining us and putting the Prime Minister's conversation with the Sri Lankan President, Dissanayake, into context. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Hong Kong arrests more suspects in a fire probe as death toll hits 151. UK lawmaker Tulip Siddiqui calls Bangladeshi prison sentence flawed and farcical. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. The United Arab Emirates has launched an urgent humanitarian operation to support communities in Sri Lanka devastated by severe floods and landslides. Announced on December 1st, the response is being coordinated through the Joint Operations Command, the UAE Aid Agency and the Emirates Red Crescent. Search and rescue teams from Abu Dhabi Civil Defence are already on the ground, working in some of the hardest hit areas alongside local authorities to reach stranded residents. Relief aircraft are also delivering essential aid, including food supplies, medicine, clothing and critical shelter materials to families displaced by the disaster. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday set the tone for the 2025 winter session of Parliament, calling for productive and balanced Parliament focused on national interest. He urged the opposition to engage in meaningful debate and avoid theatrics or negativity. The Prime Minister also highlighted the need to empower the first-time and young MPs. DD India's Rabindra Chauhan has the details.
Speaking ahead of the 2025 winter session of Parliament, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday called for a productive and responsible session focused on national interest and constructive debate. Emphasizing that India has proven that democracy can deliver, he cited the high voter turnout and increased participation of women in the recent assembly election in Bihar as evidence of the nation's strong democratic spirit.
अब मैंने देखा है कुछ प्रदेश ऐसे हैं कि सत्ता में रहने के बाद इतनी एंटी इनकम्बेंसी है कि वो वहां जनता में जा नहीं पा रहे हैं, वहां लोगों के बीच जाकर के अपनी बात बता नहीं पा रहे हैं और इसलिए सारा गुस्सा या सदन में आकर के निकालते हैं और सदन को अपने उस राज्य की राजनीति के लिए इस्तेमाल करने की नई परंपरा को कुछ दलों ने जन्म दिया है। अब उन्होंने एक बार चिंतन करना चाहिए।
PM Modi urged the opposition to raise meaningful issues, cautioning them not to turn Parliament into a space for frustration after electoral losses or for arrogance after victories. He stressed that Parliament should prioritize policy over theatrics and ensure informed, balanced discussions. The Prime Minister highlighted the need to give first-time and young MPs greater opportunities, noting that their energy and insights are vital for national progress.
कोई भी दल हो, हमें किसी को भी हमारी ये नई पीढ़ी के आ रहे नौजवान सांसद, पहली बार आए हुए सांसद, उनको अवसर देना चाहिए, उनके अनुभवों का हमें सदन को लाभ मिलना चाहिए इस नई पीढ़ी के अनुभव सदन के माध्यम से राष्ट्र को भी लाभान्वित करेंगे और इसलिए मेरा आग्रह रहेगा कि हम इन चीजों को गंभीरता से लें.
He added that the winter session should infuse new momentum into ongoing development efforts. Congratulating the new chairman of the upper house, he expressed confidence that this session would strengthen parliamentary functioning and support next generation reforms, including those building on the GST framework. Reiterating his optimism, PM Modi said India is moving rapidly towards new heights and that this session would contribute significantly to that journey. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the winter session of Parliament opened on a stormy note, with proceedings stalled as the opposition raised an uproar over the special intensive revision of electoral rolls. The ruckus forced repeated adjournments in the Lok Sabha, even as key bills were introduced, and Manipur GST's Second Amendment Bill passed amidst the din. And the issue also echoed in the Rajya Sabha, setting the stage, in fact, for a contentious start to the session.
The opening day of the winter session of Parliament saw stalling of proceedings. As soon as the lower house of Indian Parliament, the Lok Sabha, met for the day, opposition created ruckus on the issue of SIR, leading to the house being adjourned. Lok Sabha Speaker also had a word of advice for the protesting parliamentarians.
मेरा आग्रह है कि आप सदन चलाने में सहयोग करें. मैं आपके हर मुद्दों पर चर्चा करने को तैयार हूं. सदन नहीं चलाना चाहते, जनता ने आपको नारेबाजी करने के लिए नहीं भेजा है, सदन चलाने के लिए भेजा है.
Ruckus continued by opposition after the House business began once again in the afternoon, leading to stalling of proceedings.
ये लोकतंत्र बचाने के लिए जो आह्वान हो रहा है उनका, तब लोकतंत्र मजबूत होगा जब हमारा वोट डालने का अधिकार निष्पक्ष और हमारे वोट डालने के अधिकार को न छीना जाए.
हमारी अपोजिशन पार्टियां अपने काम नहीं करके, जनता की मुद्दे यहाँ पे नहीं उठा के पॉजिटिव क्रिटिसिज्म करिए. सरकार की आप अगर खामियां हैं वो दिखाइए, डिस्कशन करिए, वही तो काम है. नाटक करने की जगह तो ये नहीं है.
Amidst the din, two key bills, the Central Excise Amendment Bill 2025 and Health Security and National Security Cess Bill 2025 were introduced. Amidst the sloganeering, Manipur Goods and Services Tax Second Amendment Bill 2025 was tabled in the House for passing. The bill was finally passed amidst the ruckus. President's rule is imposed in the present time in Manipur, and this bill replaces the ordinance.
Therefore, sir, that these amendments are carried out in the Manipur State GST Act as well, so that taxpayers in Manipur also benefit from these changes.
While opposition raised the issue of SIR in the afternoon in the upper house of Indian Parliament, the Rajya Sabha.
All opposition party leaders met, discussed, and we should take this SIR matter first, and otherwise we all will have to protest against this.
The only thing I'm referring to today is, please give some time. While there are other business which are listed can be taken up, the demand which you have put forward has not been rejected.
The first day of the winter session saw the SIR issue being raised by the opposition in both the houses. It is yet to be seen whether, on this issue, any consensus is reached between the ruling side and the opposition, or the deadlock continues. With Shailendra Mishra, Anuj Yadav's report for DD India.
Spanish police dismantled the country's first known terrorist cell linked to the base. Police in Spain have arrested 3 people on suspicion of belonging to the base, which is a global neo-Nazi terrorist group that incites and trains members in techniques to overthrow governments and bring about a race war. Well, this group, which has been designated as a terrorist organization by the EU, the UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand.
The National Police has dismantled the first accelerationist terrorist cell detected in Spain. 3 people have been arrested for belonging to the base, an accelerationist neo-Nazi organization considered terrorist in the European Union, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia and New Zealand.
The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said on Monday that the Finance Minister Rachel Reeves did not mislead the public in the run-up to the budget and said at one point he too had thought that they would need to breach election pledges to hike taxes. Reeves used her budget on November 26 to increase taxes by £26 billion, but managed to avoid breaching the Labour Party's manifesto pledge not to raise certain key taxes such as income tax. Reeves has since in fact been accused of misleading the public in the run-up to the budget by overstating the weaknesses in the public finances after the fiscal watchdog released a letter showing that the government had early knowledge that it had forecast stronger tax revenue.
There was no misleading. And I simply don't accept, and I was receiving the numbers, that being told that the OBR productivity review means you've got £16 billion less than you would otherwise have had, shows that you've got an easy starting point. Yes, of course, all the other figures have to be taken into account, but we started the process with significantly less than we would otherwise have had.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in Paris on Monday, seeking to shore up crucial European support at a turning point in Kiev's war against Russia. His meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron comes as Washington presses a new plan to end the conflict. Zelensky's talks at the Elysee Palace focused on Ukraine's next steps as Kiev weighs its response to the US-backed framework pushed by US President Donald Trump. Now, the European leaders, however, remain cautious, warning that any deal must not compromise Ukraine's sovereignty or reward Russian aggression. Ukraine's defense minister attended a meeting in Brussels on Monday, and the EU foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said that it could be a pivotal week for diplomacy on Ukraine as she arrived for the EU defense ministers' meeting.
It is clear that Russia does not want peace, and therefore we need to make Ukraine as stronger as possible in order to them to be ready to stand up for themselves in this very, very difficult time. It could be a pivotal week for diplomacy.
4 people were killed and 40 wounded in a Russian missile attack on the eastern central Ukrainian city of Dnipro on Monday. Emergency services published video showing first responders carrying wounded people on stretchers and firefighters extinguishing flames. Ukraine's emergency services said a car service station, enterprises, an office building and 49 cars were damaged in the attack. Hong Kong authorities have confirmed alarming lapses in fire safety at the Wang Fuk Court estate, where at least 151 people have died in last week's devastating blaze. Officials said on Monday that more than 20 mesh samples were tested and 7 of them, taken from 4 of the estate's 7 towers, failed to meet fire retardant standards. So, investigators revealed that the green mesh wrapped around bamboo scaffolding on the buildings did not match required fire resistance specifications, raising fresh questions about compliance and oversight. A Dhaka court on Monday sentenced the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, her sister Sheikh Rehana, and Rehana's daughter and the British MP Tulip Siddique to varying jail terms in a case linked to alleged misuse of power in securing a 10-kata government plot in the capital's Purbachal area. Judge Rubial Alam of the Dhaka Special Judge Court 4 delivered this verdict. Sheikh Hasina, already sentenced to death in a separate crimes against humanity case, received 5 years of imprisonment in the Purbachal plot case. Her sister, Sheikh Rehana, was awarded 7 years, while Tulip Siddique was sentenced to 2 years in jail. The court also imposed a Taka 1 lakh fine on each of the 3, with a default penalty of 6 months imprisonment. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll discuss with an expert India's support to Sri Lanka and the larger context of Indian HADR, or that's Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief. Jaishankar holds talks with the visiting Thai Foreign Minister in New Delhi.
US launch a bombing campaign against Iran. The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Now let's analyze not just Operation Sagar Bandhu in Sri Lanka, but the pattern of humanitarian engagement of India across South Asia. It positions India as a reliable partner and a neighbor. And joining us for this discussion is Yash Vardhan Sinha, former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka. Thank you, Ambassador Sinha. Now, how does Operation Sagar Bandhu, in fact, reflect India's evolving role as a first responder in South Asia, especially for humanitarian crises?
India has been a first responder for many years now. If you recall, after the tsunami in 2004, it was India that had responded to the devastation caused in our neighborhood, particularly in Sri Lanka, but also Maldives. And similarly, later when Maldives had a water crisis, we were the first responders again. So India has had this policy of helping its neighbors. Fortunately, India also has the capability, the airlift and the capability to provide immediate assistance. In this case, within ours, our teams were in Sri Lanka. We had helicopters rescuing people from all over the country that had been affected by the cyclone Ditwa. And I'd like to offer my condolences for this huge loss of life and the devastation wrought by this cyclone in Sri Lanka.
Right.
But having said that, I understand India is always there to help.
Yes.
And I recall even when I was there, we had floods, and India was very quick to respond.
Indeed, Ambassador Sinha, but what sort of strategic goodwill does India gain by deploying military assets for disaster relief in neighboring countries?
I don't think we should measure it in terms of strategic gains, because this is purely a humanitarian effort. And as our Air Force, and in this case our Navy also, the INS Vikrant was there, and helicopters from Vikrant helped evacuate people. So I think it's a question of helping people, those in need. And Sri Lanka in many ways is our closest, dearest neighbor. So I think it is our duty, we are duty bound to help those in distress. So I think obviously this will go down, it has gone down well and will go down well with the people in Sri Lanka. But then we don't measure that in terms of strategic gains. We basically do it as a humanitarian gesture as part of our HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief policy.
So let's expand on that. Repeated humanitarian missions like Operation Neer, Maitri, Karuna, Insaniyat, all these strengthen India's diplomatic credibility, doesn't it, in the region? How does that credibility affect us, let's say, in terms of goodwill?
I think it does. I mean, countries are increasingly realizing the salience of India and the capabilities of India in this regard. For instance, the Colombo Security Conclave, which recently had a meeting in Delhi. One of the 5 pillars is humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. And I think our NDMA has done a very creditable job, not only in India, but also in our neighborhood. And countries beyond the neighborhood also look at India as a country, as a first responder to crises in the region, particularly humanitarian disasters. In fact, I dare say that even, if I recall, it was in 2005 or 6, India even offered to assist Pakistan when there was this devastating earthquake there. So I think India has always been in a position to help, and now with better capabilities and as our economy grows, we are in a better position to provide assistance to our neighbors.
True, indeed. You talk about capacity. So could India's consistent disaster relief efforts be a signal also, I mean a complement to India's economic and security policies at home? And, all this, let's say, voice of the global South, in the larger picture of, South-South cooperation?
Absolutely. I think India's leadership role here is universally acknowledged. In fact, I recall Vaccine Maitri, for instance. Not only did we help our neighbors during COVID with all sorts of assistance, including vaccines, but even countries as far as the Caribbean, island countries there. And I recall when our Prime Minister was even it was acknowledged and he was even awarded the highest honors by some of these countries. So I think India's consistent policy to help our neighbors and those in the global South has been greatly appreciated.
So, Ambassador Sinha, also to what extent do these operations, we are balancing humanitarian needs with certain long-term stability, isn't it? A long-term regional stability, trust that's being built amongst the neighborhoods. I mean, what is this whole Neighbourhood First policy's goal at the end of the day?
So basically, I think it is to foster good relations with all our neighbors and ensure that they are plugged into the growth that India is experiencing as the fastest growing large economy in the world. I recall when the Araglia protest took place in Sri Lanka, I think it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And there was a huge economic downturn because of a combination of factors. It was India again that stepped in when even the multilateral institutions and a country like China, which had invested heavily in Sri Lanka, did not, initially at least. And we stepped in, and with assistance amounting to almost $4 billion, it was a huge effort. And it basically helped Sri Lanka pull itself by its bootstraps, and the recovery since then has basically been aided by the assistance rendered by India at a time of crucial need.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Yashwardhan Sinha, former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, for putting that into context for us. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Monday met Thailand's Foreign Minister Chisak, reaffirming the deep and long-standing ties between the two countries. Jaishankar said that India values Thailand as a trusted friend and a vital maritime neighbor, adding that New Delhi's Act East policy, it aims and it aligns strongly with Thailand's Look West approach.
India and Thailand have historically shared close and friendly ties. We value Thailand as a long-time friend, apart from being a very important maritime neighbor. India's Act East policy has found a sort of a match in Thailand's Look West policy. Given the rapidly evolving geopolitical and geo-economic environment which impacts both of us, we believe that a regular exchange of views on pressing issues is very useful.
Well, the EM Jaishankar there speaking to the Thailand Foreign Minister Sihasak Puyangket Kyo. Now, India's industrial sector has shown signs of encouraging growth in October 2025. This is according to the latest Index of Industrial Production data. Now, despite overall modest growth, several key industries stood out. Manufacturing, for instance, rose by 1.8%. year on year, and with 9 industry groups reporting gains. So basic metals led the charge, posting a strong 6.6% increase, driven by higher output of steel, coils and slabs. Energy also, energy demand, it reflected resilience, and petroleum products grew 6.2%, supported by diesel and petrol production. Automobile sector accelerated 5.8%, with passenger cars and commercial vehicles contributing to the momentum. And perhaps most striking, infrastructure and construction goods surged 7.1%, underscoring the pace of India's building and also development projects. Capital goods rose 2.4%, and intermediate goods edged up 0.9%, signaling investment in future capacity. So let's look at the overall picture then. The overall IIP index, it stood at 150.9, slightly higher than last year's 150.3, confirming steady progress. The largest political party of Nepal, the Nepali Congress, will hold its Central General Convention. This is from January 10 to 12, 2026. The party spokesperson, Dr. Prakash Sharan Mahat, he confirmed that the NC Central Committee meeting has decided to hold the Central General Convention in January and also to complete the distribution of active party membership by December 6. Still with Nepal, a wooden artifact of archaeological importance stolen from the Kumari Ghar. This is in UNESCO heritage site of Kathmandu's Basantpur Darbar Square. It has been brought back from the United Kingdom. The stolen Thoran, it dates back to the Malla era, and it was stolen from the Kumari Ghar in the year 2000, and in fact it was restored to its original location at a ceremony organized by a musical band and parade. In Nepal, 120 political parties, they have applied at the Election Commission for a participation in the March 5 election to the House of Representatives. The parties could register themselves from November 17 to 30. Now, after conducting the study on the applications, the Election Commission will provide a final approval by December 6. 120 political parties interested in the next election in Nepal. Still to come here on DD India Newshour. The 4th edition of the Kashi Tamil Sangamam is set to begin on December 2. And Delhiites soaked in the flavors and sounds and spirit of a famous food festival. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Mark Lynn. The 4th edition of the Kashi Tamil Sangamam will begin on Tuesday, highlighting the deep civilizational and cultural ties between Tamil Nadu and Kashi. And it's centered on the theme, Let Us Learn Tamil, Tamil Karkalam. This year's edition, in fact, it places Tamil language learning at its core. Now, key initiatives include Tamil Karkalam, that is Tamil teaching in Varanasi schools, Tamil Korpom, that is study tours for 300 students from the Kashi region to learn Tamil, and the Sage Agastya vehicle expedition, which retraces the ancient cultural route from Tenkasi to Kashi. The 25th of November 2025 was marked as a significant cultural and civilizational milestone in the history of India. On this auspicious day, the construction work of the Ram temple, or the Ram Janmabhoomi, the birthplace temple, was formally completed in Ayodhya, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi hoisted the sacred saffron flag atop the temple's spire. Now, this religious ceremony became a magnificent symbol of India's enduring spiritual heritage, a testament also to centuries of unwavering faith and cultural resilience.
Ayodhya city of northern India once again witnessed a golden chapter of history on 25th November. The saffron flag was ceremoniously hoisted at Sri Ram Janmabhoomi temple with the sound of conch, chanting of mantras and chants of Jai Shri Ram. The entire Ayodhya echoed with devotion and enthusiasm. This is not just a religious ceremony, but a glorious celebration of India's soul, faith and belief. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a unique chapter of the country's cultural history has also been added in Ayodhya, which is the Saptamandir complex, a grand symbol of India's spiritual tradition and social harmony. For the first time in the country, the Saptamandir has given place to those great personalities who were not only associated with the story of Lord Ram, but were living messengers of social harmony, equality and unity. This inclusive thinking is the true essence of Ram Rajya, and the same inclusive policy is the guiding mantra of Prime Minister Modi's efforts as well.
हमारे राम भेद से नहीं, भाव से जुड़ते हैं। उनके लिए व्यक्ति का कुल नहीं, उसकी भक्ति महत्वपूर्ण है। उन्हें वंश नहीं, मूल्य प्रिय है। उन्हें शक्ति नहीं, सहयोग महान लगता है। आज हम भी उसी भावना से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं।
Maharshi Valmiki, who rose from the marginalized section of society, wrote the world's greatest scripture, Ramayana. He proved that knowledge is attained through devotion, not birth. Maharishi Vashisht, the guide of righteousness, ethics and balance, gave Sri Ram the fundamental principles of ideal governance and justice. Maharishi Vishwamitra renounced luxury and became a sage from a king. He gave the inspiration that with penance and determination, even the impossible becomes possible. Maharishi Agastya, who guided Lord Sri Ram and connected northern and southern cultural streams, was the bridge of harmony and balance. Nishad Raj, a supreme example of friendship and equality beyond social barriers, proved purity of heart to be the highest truth. Mata Shabri, the invaluable message of love and devotion, whose tasted berries were accepted by Sri Ram like a mother's affection. Devi Ahilya, redeemed by the touch of Sri Ram, proved that a second chance's life is always possible.
यहाँ सप्त मंदिर बने हैं। यहाँ माता शबरी का मंदिर बना है, जो जनजातीय समाज के प्रेम भाव और आतिथ्य परंपरा की प्रतिमूर्ति है। यहाँ निषादराज का मंदिर बना है। ये उस मित्रता का साक्षी है जो साधन नहीं, साध्य को, उसकी भावना को पूजती है। यहाँ एक ही स्थान पर माता अहिल्या है, महर्षि वाल्मीकि है, महर्षि वशिष्ठ है, महर्षि विश्वामित्र है, महर्षि अगस्त्य है और संत तुलसीदास है। राम लला के साथ साथ इन सभी ऋषियों के दर्शन भी यहीं पर होते हैं। ये मंदिर हमारी आस्था के साथ साथ मित्रता, कर्तव्य और सामाजिक सद्भाव के मूल्यों को भी शक्ति देते हैं।
The construction of Sri Ram Temple is not merely an effort to restore a cultural identity, but a history of everyone's contribution for a larger cause. The journey of Ram Temple was not only completed with sacrifice, penance and struggle, but also with everyone's participation, efforts and resolve. This temple is a symbol of India's character, where harmony, equality and unity are the soul of Ram Rajya. Ram Temple, the glory of the past, the inspiration of the present, and the guiding light for the future. This temple says, when society works together, the nation achieves greatness. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the creation of a new India is not merely a development campaign, but a resolution for harmonious society, equality, and respect for all. Bureau Report, DD India.
New Delhi's famous food festival, organized by Horn OK Please, returned for its 15th edition at the JLN Stadium on the 29th and 30th of November. Known for bringing together the best in food, music and cultural experiences, this year's edition once again lived up to its reputation, serving up authentic cuisine with trending music. DD India's Tanvi Taneja soaked in the flavors, sounds and the spirit of the festival.
One of Delhi's beloved food festivals, organized by Horn OK Please, was back at the iconic JLN Stadium on 29th and 30th of November with a diverse range of food trucks, pop-up shops, handpicked from all over the city. Visitors immersed themselves in an ultimate celebration of food, drinks and music. The festival provided something for everyone. Non-stop feasting for the foodie, hand-picked gems of the flea market for the shopper, and a pulsating music for the groover.
I'm really enjoying it. They're all youngsters, but still I'm enjoying the fun.
Wonderful, fantastic. I mean, the crowd is fantastic. The show is, the layout is very good. और जहाँ तक मेरी बात आपने पूछी, तो मेरी उम्र 20 साल है.
I think Horn OK, this is a great initiative, bringing in all the delicacies of Delhi together. Amazing experience.
ये सब हैंडमेड है, ये मेरी मम्मा बनाती हैं, हम लोग देहरादून से हैं और मतलब अभी ऐसा है कि ये सब पुराने टाइम में चला करता था और वापस से ना वो कल्चर रिवाइव हो रहा है. तो हैंडमेड की इतनी डिमांड बढ़ रही है. यहाँ पे संग पूरा यंग क्राउड होता है और उनको इतना पसंद आता है ये सब कुछ. जैसे हमने एक ये वेंगो सनफ्लावर बनाया हुआ है, ये एक स्टारी नाइट करके एक पेंटिंग है वेंगो, ये हमने उससे इंस्पायर होके बनाया है.
The 15th edition of the fest saw an indulgent feast featuring 5,000 plus dishes from a world of cuisines, from Delhi's iconic street eats to global gourmet delights. Co-sponsored by the Indian food brand Tops, the tangy Indian pickles were also on display, something that every Indian palate recognizes in a second.
Horn OK Please is all about Delhi vibe. You know, अगर हिंदी में बोलूँ मैं तो यहाँ पे फन है, मस्ती है, मज़ा है और स्वाद है. और it's all about, you know, दिल्ली की सर्दी, दिल्ली का खाना और दिल्ली की मौज मस्ती.
Horn OK Food Festival started out as a one-stop spot for the national capital's best food trucks in 2017. Over the years, it got popular food and beverage brands to participate. Enhancing the festive vibes are the participating music bands, which are very popular with the Gen Z. So music has now become an essential part of the Horn OK Please experience. These energetic performances prepped every corner of the festival. With shorter queues, smarter crowd flow and thoughtfully designed chill pockets, Delhiites got plenty of spots perfect for their social media moments this weekend. Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.